More podcast, where we invite you to be a part of real conversations with real women as we navigate the normal thoughts, feelings, and events in life as Christians. I'm Jess McKinney, one of your co-hosts.
I am Lydia Florence.
And I'm Sarah Hopkins.
That's our favorite part of the whole show.
It makes me so annoyed. I don't know why.
We are in order this time.
We
Usually
are.
We're not,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well done, ladies.
Good
You
work.
just picked the chair and I sat
We
down.
switched it up.
We switched it up.
I like it. I think that's
Gotta do
good.
some musical chairs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Keep
good.
it fresh.
Get out of the rut.
The red. Okay, so it's almost Halloween. I'm trying to get context for where we're at in life right now. It's almost Halloween. The leaves are beautiful.
Oh, they're beautiful.
It has been lovely this year.
yeah.
I kind of hate Halloween, but
Yeah.
But today is the quintessential October day where it's sunny, 70 degrees, slight breeze, leaves are changed.
Yes.
I just want to lay outside and bask, and be like, this is the glory of the Lord.
I feel like you'd be a really good hype person for the weatherman.
Oh,
Like,
I could get
Taking-
behind that.
taking what he's giving us, just in that.
Dressing it up.
Yeah. Making a little.
I just have
I
a visual
love-
image of Lydia in a sunshine costume going.
I love our weather people, all of them, but I think that they would probably you'd be a good little
Thank you for
wing
that.
woman.
I guess if ministry doesn't work out for me,
You have a
I've
backup
got a
plan.
backup.
That's amazing. Oh my word. Yeah, I am more the sit outside with a cup of coffee and a large sweater on kind of
Cozy.
person in the fall.
Cozy
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah. You won't catch me laying in the leaves.
I used to play in the leaves.
Yes.
And then as I grew, realized what could be hiding in those leaves
Yeah.
and quickly pivoted.
Precisely. Yes.
Yep.
Ignorance is bliss
It
when you're a
it
kid.
is, but you can't
Yeah.
unknow it. And so one of the most satisfying things to me is the perfect crunchy leaf when you step on it. So if I go for walks in my neighborhood, I look like a crazy person because I'm searching for that crunchy leaf
Nope,
just for
not that one.
satisfaction. Nope.
That's
I've said that out loud before.
amazing.
That wasn't a good one.
I would like to issue a personal just moment of gratitude for all of the ginkgo trees in Lexington.
Oh, my word.
They are my favorite. They're like electric yellow. It's like someone just plugged them into a socket and they're
Did
beautiful.
you go to the street downtown that has
them all? No, I haven't. But
Is that Henry Clay's?
It's near it, and I never know how to properly pronounce that street name, so I just say the one with all the ginkgo trees.
Okay. I was thinking Ashland Avenue, so I'm not thinking about the
No,
same
it starts
street
with the
you are.
C. I'm not
Okay.
gonna try it.
is
Okay.
it French or something?
No, I think it's pronounced as it's spelled, but in my brain it doesn't work, and
All right.
so
Okay.
I'm putting the wrong emphasis in the wrong places. I can't
On
do
the
it.
wrong syllable.
Yeah,
That's
wrong
immediately what I...
emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Can we talk about how cute you are for a second?
Oh my word!
You're over here oh, it's
I'm
so
as
cute.
big as a freaking barn.
Stop.
I am
Not
officially,
yet.
I'm past the 6-month mark now, and I feel huge. And sometimes I look down and I'm like, how will this just get bigger? There's no room. I'm 5'1", so there is nowhere for this baby to go but out.
Yep.
And I have entered into the stage of waddling. The cankles have not come for me yet, so I'm hoping to stave that off for a while still. But good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
I knew a woman that she did not go out. She was shorter. She went wide. Like her baby just went long ways almost.
Ooh.
It was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. And I've never seen anyone else carry that way, but she wasn't if you looked at her full on, she didn't really look pregnant at all. But when you
Oh, my word. That's so interesting.
I thought so too.
I have no control over this. That's one thing I've learned. Is
Right.
just I don't get to pick. Whatever happens, happens.
Yep.
It's my job to stay healthy and grow him the best I can. But
Yep.
You're doing a great job.
that's it.
You will learn that your body is more incredible than you thought it was. I mean, just way more. It does. The Lord created it to do so much. It's bizarre
Thank you.
and wonderful.
That's
And
really
You
weird.
look great. I think you're
It's
cute.
weird.
Well, anyway.
It is weird.
Yeah, I'll say it.
So far, we've agreed on everything that we've been talking about. I was waiting for us to get into territory where well, actually, I don't think that's true. And we never got there. So I tried my best. So instead, I'll just tell everybody what we're going to talk about today. And then we'll move into a little fun game for a sec. So as we talked about different topics that we should cover and things that we encounter regularly, This one's probably pretty high on the list. So it's kind of amazing we made it to episode 8 before talking about it. But we're going to talk about some conflict today, which is not my favorite thing. Maybe that's where I want to start. Do you love conflict? Like, not like, obviously no one loves disagreeing with people, but like, do you thrive in being able to like stand your ground and like, I'm going to go tackle this? Or are you kind of like, I don't love conflict? Where do you live on that spectrum?
I would have used to said that I loved conflict because I like to tussle. You know, I would like to verbally spar with people, and I always had an attitude about something. Yeah. But the older I've gotten and the more mature I've gotten, I don't love conflict unless it is to a productive end, because conflict at its best can lead to some actually really great things. Right. But I don't like to just fight for no reason anymore.
Sure. Yep. Shop, what about you?
Well, it depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
I do because I can tend to be very opinionated. I do like when someone comes with a differing opinion and we can argue that out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will quickly get to we've talked about how I'm not competitive. So eventually I'll get to the point where I think I'm out. You're just this is just a match to you're better than I am. So now I'm out.
Yeah, you're not competitive, but you want to be right.
Yes.
Which is an interesting combo.
Yes.
Keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate a good argument. There's something safe in that to me, that if you're willing to have that argument and it is a productive argument, then I can trust you. Yeah. Because you care enough to have that conversation with me. Right. The reverse is, if you're never having that, you are to me someone who doesn't actually care about me, so I can't ever trust you.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
So I think in some way I do like them, because they're at on some level there is a trust that builds out of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I agree. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I don't like conflict. When I was a younger leader, it was one of those things that I had to get used to. And it's not that like I would avoid it at all costs. Like I would deal with what I needed to, but I was always going, is there a different way we could have this conversation where like you're not going to walk away with your feelings hurt and I'm not going to walk away thinking that you hate me forever? So there was a lot that I had to figure that out with. I would say now, especially having kids, it's a little bit different of a ball game. I've learned like there are values that if you cross them, we're going to talk about it.
Yes.
There are other things where I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. So I probably like fall in the middle now, whereas before I would say that I very heavily erred on that. I do not like conflict. I do not want to be a part of it. I hate debating just for debate's sake. And it seems like most people I know love to debate for debate's sake. So I'm just like, I'm the person in like at the tennis court who's sitting in the middle going, that's me. I'm just like, I'll just watch it all happen.
You can watch her. She'll just start to get real nervous, and she'll get that laugh.
Like the nervous laugh. Yeah.
Yep. There are two people in a meeting that we have every week, and they both love to just like, they're not arguing, but debating is the best way to say it. And I always end up sitting in between them. Always. And I'm like, how can I figure out where else to sit in this room? And why do you follow me? But now it's almost a joke where they're like, well, we have to sit on either side of her because, you know, it puts her right in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that in many areas of life, but it's fine. So, yeah. Okay. So before we talk like biblical conflict, those kinds of things, let's have some fun. You have hot takes.
I do.
And I want to hear them.
Yeah, one thing about old Lyd the kid, she loves to stir the pot. So
I can't wait.
Here's the thing with hot takes. You have to understand, these are just my personal opinions, and they're not popular, and I do not care.
And they're not representative of our employer or anything else.
I speak for me and me alone. And some of these I may argue with you on, I may debate on, and some of them I may just stand my ground and say, this is my opinion, and like it or lump it. Here it is.
I'm so excited to hear these.
So let's start with something mild. Okay. Number one, pineapple does belong on pizza.
You are wrong.
I am correct.
You are wrong.
It's so good.
It's gross.
I would say it doesn't belong, but it still goes.
Okay, so
just because it doesn't belong doesn't mean it's not going to show up there.
it's like Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. It's
Yeah,
like too much, too little, just right.
There are lots of things in my life. There was a spider in my bathroom this morning that magically disappeared by the time I turned around to get something to kill it. It doesn't belong in there, but it was there.
But it was there.
Now I have to burn down the apartment complex.
So would you eat a pizza with pineapple on it?
Yeah. The pineapple and pepperoni. Yeah, I would have.
Oh,
Happy to.
I'm a texture person, so pineapple for me is a no-go.
It's so good.
Like pineapple juice is great. So I will.
Oh my gosh. I thought that was off.
Am I going to have to do the distractions announcement on you? I'm sorry to all my bosses.
It's
Please
PNC.
silence your cell phones now.
Are you satisfied with your service? I'm not now. Oh my gosh, that's
you called it the most inopportune time.
I apologize.
That's hilarious.
Listen, this is real life, real conversations,
Hot
real women,
takes.
real life.
Old people should turn their phones off. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you are not old.
Hey, your flashlight wasn't on though. So
That's true. You're not texting out here. Like,
yeah, that's me half the time. My flashlight's on.
I am starting to text that way, so just watch it. Lid the kid.
It's
age with grace,
fine.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, I'm a texture person. So pineapple, there's something about it that I don't know. It just grosses me out. So I will cook pineapple with chicken and teriyaki sauce and then remove said pineapple so that I get the juices and the flavor, but I don't actually eat it. Right. So thus, you were wrong in my opinion.
But the flavor, that's the whole thing, is like it adds just that different pop of flavor. You know,
Salty,
you got
sweet.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
so
if you
good.
could like
I've been to
drip
Italy.
some
If they kick
pineapple
me out.
juice on the pizza.
No.
I don't know. That sounds gross too, though.
That's
Not
a
gonna
pretty
lie.
mild hot take.
It's fine.
How much do we want to crank the dial
I
here?
mean, keep going. That one.
Like at least a couple notches.
Okay,
Yeah.
a couple notches.
Okay.
I think it's stupid when people collect things that they don't use. So let me explain what I mean by this. Like I don't really collect a lot of things, but I do collect jadeite like dishware, which is like green milk glass. It's really beautiful. And it's hard to find and it's pretty expensive, but I've built up a little bit of a collection, but I use all of it.
Yeah.
Like I believe it's made to be used. Or like people who collect like expensive sneakers or whatever and they don't wear them. I'm like, sneakers were made to be worn, or things like that. Like I think it's stupid when people collect stuff that they don't use because you're just accumulating things for no reason. Stuff has a purpose. Like everything's got a purpose at some level.
So as long as it has a purpose.
Yeah, you have to use use it in the way it was intended to.
Well, okay, so clarifying question, because there's some people who will buy shoes and not wear them, but the intention is to resell them later
That's not a collection.
at a higher price.
But that's not a collection.
Okay,
That's like
so
a
that
hustle.
doesn't qualify. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if either of you
It's a hustle.
collect anything, but
I mean, I do collect. There are some
Yeah.
well, it's pottery that I collect, but we do use it.
okay, so then that's fine.
My
think there's anything
friend
else.
Jessica, not this one, a different one, got me into looking for sea glass when we go places. So I do pick that up, and it has no use in my house
and
whatsoever.
I can kind of understand that because it doesn't have a practical use.
There's no practice. I mean, I could turn it into jewelry if I were
Yeah.
creative and.
It's also like a memento of where you've been, though. So it's almost like picking up a souvenir.
Yeah, but now that I've got a little pile, I couldn't tell you which piece came from where.
yes, that's true.
So I'm not doing anything great with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is over. It's not.
We're talking like a stamp collection
Sure,
or like.
yeah. Things that have an express purpose that you do not use them for.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know that I disagree that much. It's not my
Okay, that
jam.
might not be that hot of a take.
I-
Sorry to
I-
all the collectors out there.
I like a collection.
No,
Yep.
it's an
I'll say it.
accumulation. You
It is.
when you're the person who's like having to clean out the estate of someone who's a big old collector, nightmare.
Oh, I
Wow,
know. Trust me.
Yeah.
I know.
She's
But
like, I did that.
I've done that.
Yes.
And I will have to do it again. But I don't mind to throw things out for other people.
Sure.
I prefer to throw other people's things out than mine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they can do it.
They're
but-
harder when they're your own nostalgia that you
Yeah.
have to get rid of. Yeah.
But if I'm going to just think of the joy you have in throwing out something that you have no value to, and then someone who does value it comes along like, oh my gosh, I got this for
one
5
man's trash
cents.
is another man's treasure. It's true.
It's great. You're bringing joy to that person's life by throwing out someone else's treasure.
All right, I have 2 other hot takes. These are getting progressively hotter. Okay. This is going to get me in some hot water with the people of my own generation. And again, I say, I do not care. Here it is. I don't like dogs. I don't want to pet your dog. I don't want to hang out with your dog when I come over to visit you. I don't like dogs. And that is a really unpopular opinion.
Let me add to that. I have a cat, and we bash on cats from stage all the time around here. And I'm like, oh, I love my cat.
Why?
Because she's sweet. She cuddles with me.
I've been to your house many times.
Well, she doesn't
Not
know
once. Not once has she even entered the room.
No. Well, she lives on the back porch, so that's part of it. Yeah.
No.
She doesn't live inside.
Look at all of these parameters you have to put around a cat. Oh, she doesn't know you. Oh, she's outside. Oh, she's just unsure about people. You don't have to do that with a dog.
Yeah, and here's, like, to clarify, I don't mean animosity towards animals of any kind. Like, I'm not like, we should abuse them. Obviously not. That's crazy.
Real dark.
Like, yeah, exactly.
I don't know that anyone thought that that's where that was going.
I just feel like I need to clarify. Like, I'm not saying we should treat them
poorly. We weren't thinking it before, but now.
I'm just saying...
I think
like
you're the Michael Vick of
when people call their dogs like their fur children, or when they refer to themselves as pet parents, I'm like, we cannot be equating animals with the same status of humanity.
I don't
it's
like
not
that.
right.
I agree.
It strongly bothers me, and also I just don't care for dogs.
Can I raise it up one time, since people do equate it with their children, and say there are some people whose children, like, just because they're your cat, I don't think that what they did was that impressive. And usually I'm going, that's super great that she drew a cloud.
Yeah.
That's so great.
But it means so much to us.
I know.
We have to share it with the world. You know?
Yeah, you don't.
I do.
You really don't.
She said you don't.
You don't. Just, I mean, I love my friend's kids so much, but it's not that impressive.
Yeah.
I love puppies and dogs and cats. And I don't discriminate. So I will pet all of them. I did, though. When I was in high school and college.
That's a very long time ago.
Well, it's time to... Because we had our cats for almost 20 years. So, which that I just dated myself. You knew how old I was. It's fine. Anyway, so we had a dog at one time. She was super sweet. Chuck would not say the same thing. I don't think he loved her as much as I did, because she would poop when he was around. But when I go to people's houses, like, if you have an animal, I'm going to be like, where is that? I want to see them. I want to love on them, all the things. So I'm probably the opposite.
Lydia doesn't want to
of
touch them.
Yeah, no, and again, no hate on people who are pet owners.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine with me that other people like them. I don't.
Yeah.
And
do you like cats?
No.
Okay, so it's pets in general.
Yeah, and like part of that's probably just growing up. Like, we weren't a pet family. Like, we had farm animals. We have farm animals, and so animals served a purpose. And so I believe in, treating them humanely and seeing them as part of God's good creation. But there is a difference in treating an animal humanely and treating them humanly. They are not human.
Right.
And so anyway,
I get that.
That's my hot take.
You can write in if you.
I'll probably get some emails about that one.
Or if you think your pet will go to heaven, send that to Lydia.
Oh man.
I do really have a theology about animals in heaven, which might surprise people. But anyway. Yeah. Okay, last one.
Okay.
This is personal.
I'm nervous. You're looking at me, so I'm nervous.
I actually didn't get into the one that we talked about, but
that's great.
This one might be irrational. I don't care. 99% of podcasts are not worth listening to. Have I listened to all the podcasts in the world? No, absolutely not. I know that this may be a baseless claim, but it's my opinion. It's my hot take.
Do we want you to listen to ours? Yes, we do.
I think, again, it's hilarious that, like, I'm a part of this because I don't listen to podcasts almost at all. There's a few that occasionally I will, but I'm not into it. I don't understand why they're so popular. 100% of the time, given the option to listen to something, I would choose music, not listening to other people talk. Yeah. So anyway, that's a hot take specific to this current
Yeah, I love
context.
a podcast. I listen to all the history ones and just as much as I can. I love a murder podcast.
Oh,
Love them.
it's kind of dark.
Well,
You're really
love them. I love to find out what's going to happen. Like the whodunit. It's a whodunit.
Oh yeah.
You know.
No, it's like it's like a mystery.
It's like
you find out
Dateline has a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. So
I guess
you're
that
wrong.
makes sense if you're in the media.
I know.
You're wrong.
Again, these are unpopular opinions. I stand alone in many of these, but
I just don't have the opportunity to listen to podcasts very often because you're right, music's on all the time. Of course, it's partially because it's my job. So, but like, I don't feel like I have time to listen to something that I could actually engage with because I've either allowed children in the car or I'm listening to music for some aspect of my job or there are people around. And so I'm obviously not listening to a podcast and tuning them out. So I don't really know when right now in my life.
Walks. They're great in the car.
I can't in the car. The kids are in the car. They're loud.
Well, like after you drop them off. So between school and work, you could get a 20-minute podcast.
Nope.
I don't. You would think like I'm someone who loves words. I'm someone who loves learning. So you
Which
would
is why I'm
think that
surprised by it.
podcasts would appeal to me, but they do not. They don't.
Did you grow up listening to talk radio? Did your parents listen to that?
No.
Yes.
So I did. We listened to, there was a guy named Paul Harvey who would do,
And
my
that's
goodness.
the rest of the story.
I loved it.
Yep.
So maybe there's something to that of,
I don't know.
if you're brought up around it, you're just so used to hearing voices on the radio, not in your head. But
The only real exceptions I make are there's one podcast that I will occasionally listen to that is by some of my former professors, but they're people that I know personally.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll listen to that. And then there's one other one that I will occasionally listen to that just tells stories. And so it's almost more like a
book on tape.
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah, those are the more interesting ones. When it's just people, there are a lot.
Yeah.
And everybody has now. It's the thing now.
Yeah.
As we sit here and do it.
Yeah, I know.
Again,
That's the
do we want you to
hypocritical part of
listen
this.
to our podcast? Yes, we do. Please.
So there's
But
my
we
hot
get it.
takes.
We'll get into a fight about how we're
That's
going to
good.
stop doing it.
I don't think that was too bad.
That wasn't too bad.
We didn't
We'll
get into
see.
the Taylor Swift bit, but
I had a middle schooler, and she, first night I was covering a group, and she said, okay, what are your thoughts on Taylor Swift? And I said, she's overrated. The whole room erupted. And I said, you give me Taylor Swift, I will give you Whitney Houston. And this girl looked at me, and to her credit, she said, you're right.
but I love them both, but for different reasons. I adore Whitney Houston. I also am proudly a Swiftie from the beginning. So
I love that for you.
you're like, love that journey for you, not for me.
Not for me. Nope.
Nope.
It's
That's
okay.
She's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
Very good songwriter.
Yeah, and that's part of why,
Yeah.
like, I admire her is her songwriting ability.
Yeah. But
I do not endorse everything that either Whitney Houston or Taylor Swift does.
Heavens,
so
no.
don't hear me giving a
No.
Yeah. Anyway,
They're neither of them are Dolly. Let's just say that.
Oh, man.
I love Dolly.
We just need apparently an episode where we just chat and shoot the breeze because I could talk about this all day.
Well, we're talking about conflict.
Yes,
and I told you guys I have a story
Yes.
about conflict, and this might jettison us into the
Let's go.
topic. So this is kind of outing myself. I had lived with a girl named Sarah for years and years. We were roommates. She owned the house we lived in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know she listens to this. Sarah,
Hi,
I'm sorry.
Sarah.
hi Sarah.
But we avoided conflict.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons I loved living with her. It was just, we never fought. Probably she's a little bit more passive than I am, but she's so kind and she's so generous. I'm never going to do anything that would ever upset her. It'd be like kicking a puppy. You just wouldn't because she's so nice. However, because she owned the house, she was more mindful of bills than I would have been. So in the summer, it would be very hot. In the winter, the house would be very cold. So I would wait every night until she went to bed. and I would put the heat up or down, put the air up or down.
I knew where that was going. Sorry.
And then I would wake up before her
Oh my gosh.
and turn it
You're
up or down.
so dedicated.
That takes some real effort.
I was that hot or that cold.
And you would go to that length to avoid conflict.
And never told her. I think maybe towards the end of living together, I finally said, can I pay you more if we can turn the air down a little bit? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So there's probably not a big deal. But I legit used to wait until she went upstairs. And I thought, this is my moment.
And then Sarah moves out and she's like,
You sneaky
man, my
little-
bills are so different now.
So much cheaper.
I know.
But yeah, so Sarah, sorry,
Wow.
I was a liar and a cheater.
That's,
But
I'm almost impressed. I don't know what else to
every
say.
single night
Whew.
I would do that.
Wow.
And because the air would kick on the other side of the house, and so she wouldn't hear
Yeah.
it.
Huh.
That's how I knew.
Serious dedication to that.
Oh my goodness.
I
Yeah.
love central heating and air. I'm a big fan.
It is one of the things of the 21st century that we enjoy.
I really do.
That and
like
indoor
it.
plumbing.
Yep.
Oh,
Fan.
thank the Lord.
Huge fan.
Yes.
But so some things I will not have conflict about.
Yeah.
If you're really
Well, you
nice.
pick your battles.
You pick your battles.
I get that. I understand. Yeah, I don't have any good stories. I was trying to think through. I have actually met another person who did the same thing that you did, to a lesser degree.
Okay.
It was more like, oh, I'm just gonna go change it, but not say anything.
Oh yeah. No,
And-
you always get caught when you're doing that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of fighting upstairs in the
Yeah.
office about temperatures because
Yeah.
we all share thermostats, except for me. Thank the Lord. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so thankful for that. But yeah, and the two people right next to me, one likes it warmer and one likes it frigid. So that's fun to listen to.
I
all the
mean, I
time.
really feel for like the women who are going through menopause and they're having hot flashes and things. I do feel for them.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, run cold all the time.
Same.
I'm always freezing.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
it's
my
tricky.
heater's on in the summertime, so
The difference is I can keep like a blanket in my office. And so even though I'd much rather be warm, I have sympathy for those who are on the other
we
side of that
can layer
equation.
on up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you can
that's
avoid
good.
conflict if you just don't say anything.
Or you can have one singular conversation and it would be fine.
Right. Well, so that's
Or that.
that segues me into my point because conflict has a very negative connotation.
Yes.
Right. In general, it's like, oh, it's debating, it's arguing, it's like having a really tough conversation with somebody, and it is those things, but it can also be very healthy. So I think we maybe should talk a little bit about what in its unhealthy state it can look like and what in its healthy state it can look like. One of the things you said earlier was there are conversations where people can hold you accountable to things. And I think that comes through conflict resolution.
Yes.
And it's something that we talked about when we did our friendship episode about having people in your life who can be honest with you. And it's not as harsh for some reason. Like
Yeah.
if you come to me and you see something I'm doing and you're like, hey, I need to talk to you about this. You don't come in with like guns blazing and fingers pointing like you did this and I can't believe that. And we're not yelling.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, I see this. I need to talk about it with you. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's conflict resolution in its healthiest form. Versus anger
It's the
and
ideal.
being driven by your reaction and your emotion as opposed to maybe what the outcome is.
Yeah.
If that
It's
makes sense.
It's easy to talk about the way conflict should be
Yes.
because you're not in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the danger is when your emotions are heightened and you immediately go to anger or just responding out of hurt
Yeah.
or frustration, and you don't have that, or it doesn't feel like you have that time to stop and think and play this out to the
Oh, that's
where this is
the
going to
worst.
go.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you just go, or at least I do. I'm sure no one else does this. Go in guns blazing. That is typically how I would do it when I'm doing it out of my just flesh and
Yeah.
trying to respond.
I have been very guilty of being like the defensive reactor when someone is approaching me about something. I don't know
Yes.
why that is my reaction right off the bat. And Chuck would tell you this because he'll like talk to me about something and he thinks he's just coming in to like say some casual thing. And I'm like, no, what? Like, I'm just appalled and I'm immediately emotional about it. And I'm not actually hearing what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because my emotions are just like, we're offended, you know?
Is it not rooted in the insecurity that that is already in you? Like the thing that he's talking to you about.
Yes.
You're already a little bit questioning
already
it.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he brings it up.
Yeah.
And then how dare you?
Yes, I know. I don't
know if that speaks to you. That would speak to me.
Totally speaks
Yeah,
to
it
me.
strikes a nerve.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to conflict, most people in our unhealthy states are either, hear me out on this, turtles or skunks. Okay.
What is happening?
I should have known you'd have one of these. Hold on. Okay.
God.
Let me settle
Okay,
in.
so either in conflict, some people are turtles. They just retreat.
Yeah.
They just want to pull back into that shell, and they hate the idea of being in disagreement or there being tension so much that they would rather wall themselves off than engage.
Yeah.
And then some people are skunks, where you approach them, you've got conflict, they're just going to spray everywhere and they're not going to back down. They're going to let it all out, you know, just machine gun right all over you. And so I'm serious, in our unhealthy states, most people will tend towards either being a turtle or a skunk.
Yeah.
Now, do I have an animal to illustrate, you know, healthy conflict? No.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, what's the middle? What are we going for?
I don't have one, but the idea is conflict at its best moves you to a better place.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, I also just want to bring up the fact that conflict is a life skill. This will happen in literally every relationship that you're in, whether that's marriage, friendship, coworkers, children, whatever. You know, we expect there to be other life skills that we learn. We all learn how to tie our shoes. We all learn how to feed ourselves. We all, whatever. And yet there are so many people who never learned the skill of conflict, and that has detriment in the relationships in your life. But it is a skill that I think can be learned, and that's because it's something that is going to inevitably occur in your relationships, but can either be done poorly or be done well.
Right. Yeah.
And it is something you have to practice. I mean, you have to go through it over and over and over. I think I was just trying to think of biblical examples of conflict, even from Jesus. Thinking about all the time when we talk about the woman that's being stoned, they're coming at him with her, you know, right in the middle of it. And we often talk about different views of that story. But I mean, honestly, you're watching him in that moment de-escalate a situation and take his time to figure out how to respond or in the right and righteous way so that wrong is exposed and grace is applied.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great example. That's a really good story.
Well, thank you.
Of that. Good job.
Thanks. But it's you see in the Sons of Thunder and James and John and how their immediate response is more natural, more understandable than Jesus's is, honestly. Or we were talking about Mary and Martha in a group I was in this morning, and how Mary is always the one that's looked at like, oh, isn't she great? And you're just thinking, what? Poor Martha's over there slaving away, and she's frustrated, and she's starting this conflict, and I guarantee there was conflict before, and Jesus de-escalates it really quickly. And just so he takes that moment. It's almost like he takes that holy breath because he knows why it's important to do so. But
I love the way he, in both of those scenarios, though, the way that he talks to both of those women is interesting because it is convicting and truthful and honest, but very loving.
Yes.
Which is how we should be
Yeah.
at our best.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're speaking truth, you're saying hard things. And you're honestly, if you're the person who's coming in to address that, you already know the likelihood of hurting someone else's feelings is very high, and that's not what you want to do.
Right.
but being able, like you said, to take a breath and go, okay, how can I phrase this? How can I use the words the Lord's given me to say what I need to say without, and help them to understand what I'm saying and where my heart is and my intention for it, and not walk away feeling attacked.
Yeah.
Or whatever, to know that I love you and I'm saying this because I love you. And I'm not saying you're doing this, then I'm out.
Yes.
It's, hey, here's what's going on. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
What are some real ways? I was trying to think of what real ways are you seeing that played out. I think of when you tell a friend, when you're like, hey, the dude you're with, let's say you're not married, the dude you're with is a jerk, and you think he's wonderful, but he's not.
Right.
That will always.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the textbook? The girl's going to look at you and go, you're jealous. You never want me to be happy. Oh my gosh. I'm so sick of that. Or conflict with family.
Yeah.
And that's usually, I mean, the holidays are upon us.
Very dramatic.
Maybe other families aren't like this, but it feels like mine can go from 0 to 60 in under a second.
Yes,
absolutely. And I feel like I have whiplash and don't know what just happened.
Yes.
And so I'm not responding.
Yeah.
I'm responding to protect myself almost.
Sure.
From the arsenal that's just been lobbed at me.
Yes, exactly.
So how do you do that well?
I think a lot of it starts before you ever actually have the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great idea to pray for somebody before you go in and confront them. And
absolutely,
I think a lot of it depends on like what the conflict is. It's one thing if you're, going to a friend to say like, hey, I don't think the guy that you're with is great for you. That is a form of conflict, but it's not directly like against her. It's a different thing to go to someone and be like, hey, you hurt me, or there's something that happened that we disagree on, or I'm unsatisfied with. So it probably depends a little bit on the type of conflict. But one just wildly practical thing that I've learned is when heading into conversations like those, my tendency is probably to come with my Gettysburg Address, like ready to say my speech to whoever. And instead, it is wiser for me to lead with questions, because I need to make sure that I understand the other person, that I give them the chance to like clarify if there is something that I've misunderstood. I need to hear that instead of being accusatory. So that's just one real practical piece, is just lead with questions. Learn the skill of asking good questions. That is a skill that can be learned. And when it comes to conflict, clarity is kindness. So making sure that you've got a full picture of, what the other person is going through, and that clearly what you need to say, and always saying it in love. But rather than going and saying you did this, coming in and just asking some thoughtful questions to get to a point of conversation.
Yeah, I do feel like more often than not, I'm not saying all the time, but more often than not, it is misunderstanding that leads to a lot of these situations, and they get blown wildly out of proportion because there are emotions involved and things like that. And most of us tend to sit and stew on things for a little while. And sometimes that's good because it helps calm you down, and you talk to folks who have good wisdom and can say, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's how you should have the conversation. I'll be praying for you while you're doing it. Yeah. It'll be great. But there's also the flip side where you're stewing on it and you're like, oh no, I'm just even more riled up. And like, I go in and I'm angry. So I think oftentimes at least when I've been involved in situations where I'm like, man, why would they say something like that? That was so hurtful. And I ask the question of that person, they're like, that's not how I intended it at all.
Yep.
And if I were to sit and stew on that, I have made assumptions about that person that are not true in the slightest. And I'm damaging our relationship before I ever walk in the room.
Yeah. We often wait because we're the hurt one. We don't go to the people that hurt us. Yeah. We put that expectation on them.
Yes. Yeah.
You hurt me, so you come and fix this.
As though they know.
Yeah. We put up a lot of assumption in that instead of going to them and like, because that's a vulnerable place to be, to say, hey, you hurt me. Yeah. It's embarrassing. Yeah. And to be brave enough and to love that person enough to say, you hurt me. Did you know that? Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like this seems like minutia, but even just the way that you phrase things, because it may be reality that they hurt you, but it'll probably be better received if I walk in and say, when this happened, here's how I felt, rather than saying you did this, because it makes it sound like I automatically believe the worst about them.
Right.
And if you can start by believing the best about somebody until they give you a reason not to, that's a better starting place than going in thinking this person is my enemy. And in reality, not to Jesus juke, but you are never my enemy. Satan is my only enemy.
Every week.
So, well,
we're working it into every episode.
It's true. Like, we have to remember who the enemy is. And we also have to remember that most conflict is not insurmountable.
Right.
And so if we can go in believing the best about someone until they give us a reason not to, and we can be careful with our words, that will just set the stage for a productive conversation a lot better.
Yeah.
What does that look like in the context of marriage when those hurts are like the person who you are most vulnerable with does the hurting? How do you all manage that? Because I find that a little bit fascinating. That to me is terrifying.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's true. The people in your life that you're closest to are able to cut you the deepest. Not that they mean to, but they're able to, because they do know all of your insecurities and things like that. However, for Chuck and I, conversation and communication early on was a big deal. We talk about a lot of things and we talk through a lot of things. I'm usually the one who gets their feelings hurt and walks away and needs a minute. But a lot of times it's because I know if I react in the moment, I'm going to react out of hurt and not actually say things that I mean. You know what I mean? And then I'll have to go back later and be like, okay, I am so sorry. And I hate that. I hate that. So,
hate apologizing.
I do. I don't know what is wrong with me, but it's true. But so having communication skills inside of your marriage where you can go, hold up, that crossed the line.
Yes.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Really helpful to have, because it's almost like you're in the middle of the game and you've taken a time out for a sec because you're like, whoa. We have lost sight of what we are doing. We need to regroup. And I mean, that sounds extreme, but it keeps us from getting to the point where we're just emotional. And I can think of maybe twice over 20 years of marriage that we have actually had yelling matches at each other, which I feel like is a pretty good record. But it's not normal for us because I think we tried to develop those skills early on. If you don't have those, or if you are young in your marriage, or even you're dating somebody, because I feel like dating is a little different now than when I was dating, but those are must figure out skills in order to have a successful and healthy relationship, really with anyone, but especially with someone that you are going to be spending a whole lot of time with for the rest of your life. It's a must do.
Well, and even if you haven't been married for if you have been married for a long time, I can't imagine most of the men that we know would say it isn't helpful when their wives say exactly what they're meaning and are very clear. I assume the guys that we work with a lot of times are reading my brain. I can only imagine if I were married, the pressure I would, because I assume so much. I can't believe that you're not. And that is such an unfair play.
Oh, sure. Our brains are totally different.
That's a manipulation tool. And not to say that they are morons. They are not. But just to go, maybe he's not thinking that the same way you are. Yeah, that's helpful.
You know, when we got married 5 years ago, I felt like we got some really good guidance around conflict, and I also felt like we got some bad guidance around conflict. And one of the pieces that was not ultimately helpful was sometimes people would say, never go to bed angry at each other. And there is that verse, I think it's in Ephesians 4, that says, don't let the sun set on your anger. But I actually think that does not literally mean don't let the sunset go down if you're angry, because sometimes what you need is to sleep, especially like if we're both exhausted and at our worst, sometimes we need to sleep on it and revisit it. What it does mean is don't let it fester, which you were talking about. Like, don't let that anger stew. Right. Don't let it fester. You need to work towards that. But you have to know yourselves well enough to know, like, nothing in my life is off limits to Tristan. And same thing. Like, we are one. And so there is nothing at all that he does not get access to in my mind, my heart, my phone, whatever. Like, he has access to all of it. But that doesn't mean that sometimes we don't need boundaries in place for like things like conflict. So there are times when we both might know there is something that we need to work through. Yeah. But right now we're tired, we're cranky, we're hungry. There is some other pressing thing that needs our attention more than this right now. And so we kind of have to say, okay, we're going to stick a pin in this. We're not saying we're not going to talk about it, but right now we're not at our best. Yeah. And we need to go to sleep and try again in the morning or something else. So there's that. But that, I mean, sincerely, kind of like the things I already said, some of the best advice that we received that I think has served us well is remembering we are never each other's enemy. Yeah. Right. Satan is the only enemy, and we are side by side. We are not against each other. And inevitably there are disagreements, there are things, there are whatever, but I'm always going to start by believing that he has the best intentions and then doing the best that we can to communicate with clarity and with love towards one another, not assuming that he wants to hurt me or that he wants to whatever. And sometimes, let's be honest, we're all sinful. Like, I have said things before in my marriage or to other people that I intended to be hurtful and sin. I have done that. And so there's also, like, part of learning conflict well also means learning to apologize and learning to forgive. And, you know, that's part of what we have to learn to do. Yeah.
We do hold on, typically as women, hold on to things. And do not let people off the hook and bring it back up. And I think what you guys were saying is about, how do I say this? Assuming the best about someone, how quickly we ignore the years and years and years of healthy relationship and immediately think that in this moment, you hate me enough to hurt me. Right. That I've gone the opposite direction to think that you don't care about me. Because of all of these things I've let build up and fester, which is then again on me because I haven't talked to you. I haven't worked through it. I haven't clarified any of it. I'm just willing to believe the worst of you, which is crappy. And one of the worst traits we have as humans. Like, that's just, it's childish. It's very mean girlish.
It is.
Like that. Yeah. Maybe we need to watch that movie every year and check ourselves as adults to go, are we doing some of this? Right. Have we actually aged out of this?
And you always will. I think that's like you were talking about how, you know, in your healthy state versus you're not, like knowing you're tired and needing to walk away. We will also screw up and that's going to happen. And there's never a point that where you reach perfection in this area or any other, honestly, until we meet the Lord, which will be great because then we'll all be kumbaya and it'll be great. But so don't beat yourself up. I'm just sitting over here thinking about like all the times where I've either been the person who's been approached or I've been the person who's been hurtful and how I've reacted in all those situations. And I think you just, looking back, you can't beat yourself up for the ways that you've handled things. You can only, again, like we said last time, you can only control your reaction now. And moving forward. So it's just something that I think, like you said, you have to develop it. It's a skill. You get better at it over time. You're never going to nail it. There's going to be somebody who can just push your buttons. And for some reason, you can't get it together enough to not overreact. And while it's still sinful, like, we get it. There's no judgment. It's just something you're going to have to work on. I have to work on it for sure.
Well, yeah. And if it gets to the point where you're just completely at odds with someone, bring in the mediator, the buffer.
That was my next question.
To say, are we hearing each other right? There is no shame in that. In fact, it shows your wisdom to say, I might not be seeing this correctly. And I don't understand why people won't do that. Maybe shame. I guess.
I think shame.
But
yeah,
like maybe we're not
Or
perfect. Yeah. But I cannot imagine being, because we talked about before, I hate being misunderstood. I hate, like, that just makes me cringe.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being that deep in a relationship, even with my friends, to say, I'm not going to bring someone in on this.
Right.
I'm just going to bail.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people bail on me, but at that point, I'm just going to go, well, I'm here when you're ready to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's super biblical. Matthew 18 paints a really clear picture of conflict resolution. Jesus teaches this.
yeah.
And, you know, this is applicable in, again, literally any relationship. Like, the best move is always, if I have a problem with you, I'm not going to go talk to 100 other people before I come talk to you. It's one thing if you need to seek counsel or wisdom, but, like, my goal should always be that I'm going to come straight to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And if for whatever reason I do that and we do it the best that we can, and we're at an impasse, we can't see eye to eye, we're struggling to have any kind of productive conversation, bring in another person.
Yeah.
Like, and it should be someone who is wise and someone who is trustworthy. So maybe that's a counselor.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a trusted friend.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is, but sometimes you just need the third party to help insert questions or provide insight that you're not getting to on your own.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do just need to you need to have it out.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna need, it's not gonna always be, hey, you really hurt me. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's not gonna be, it's not Pollyanna. That's not real life.
Yeah, baby, I cry all the time. I be crying constantly. And that was true before I was pregnant. And it's even more true now. But sometimes you just got to get through that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
Sometimes when people cry on me in conflict, I'll be honest, it feels like manipulation.
Yeah.
It's just like a knee-jerk reaction for me. It's not manipulation at all.
No.
It's just
If
like,
if I'm
it's like
crying,
my feelings don't have anywhere to go,
Yeah.
so they
Yes.
come out my tear ducts.
you would think I would know that as one who sometimes does that. But if I'm in the heat of the moment and that starts happening, I'm like, now you're just trying to make me feel bad.
You're trying to get out of your parking ticket.
Well, here's another thing I want to, like, make clear, especially for the turtles who are listening, those who retreat. I understand that, but you know, when Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers," peace is not the absence of conflict.
Right.
So sometimes we think peace means, well, we just shouldn't fight, we shouldn't have conflict, and that's not true. Like, in order to get to actual real peace, you usually do have to move through conflict.
A lot of negotiation, a lot of compromise.
Yeah.
Peacemakers and peacekeepers are not the same thing.
Yes.
Agreed.
Good clarification.
My
That's
mom
good.
one time said, I'm
Yeah.
just a peacemaker. And I said, no, you're not. You're
Yeah.
a peacekeeper.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'd be having an argument right now to clear this up.
Right.
And what I'm being told is just
You're
don't worry
willing
about it.
to live in it and never fix it
Right.
versus fixing it with good intentions.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, even with peacekeepers, like, it's usually some kind of pseudo peace because one or the other
Right.
person is definitely not at peace internally. They're bothered.
Yeah.
They're just not talking about it.
They're seething.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's telling the truth. Everyone's lying.
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of humility also to have those conversations on both sides.
Yes.
It takes a lot of humility to be able to react in a way that isn't overly emotional. It takes a lot of humility, also a humble heart, really, to walk in and have, like, to say to somebody, hey, I have this issue
Yeah.
and we really have to talk about it because I don't know how to get through it.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially admitting, in our society today, it's admitting weakness,
Right. Yeah.
which we don't love to do. So, yeah.
Which is crazy because I actually think you're a stronger person.
I know.
After that.
I
Because
know.
we've talked about, like, after we've gone through hard things,
Yeah.
our relationship is better.
Absolutely.
But we forget that every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, we are like goldfish. We just don't remember
Yeah.
a minute later that is so important.
The hard work pays off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've had to learn in the last couple of years, there was one instance in particular that I'm thinking of where someone was really critical of a way that I was leading something in particular. And I was hurt by, like, some of their comments to me. And again, my first response was to want to be defensive and be like,
Sure.
no, like, you don't understand my intentions with this. My intentions were good. And like, there's reason why I'm doing this or whatever. But one of the questions I've learned to ask when it comes to conflict or criticism is there any truth in what the other person is saying that I do actually need to hear? Even if they said it really poorly,
Right.
do I have the humility? Like, is God trying to get my attention through somebody else? And sometimes the answer might be no. Sometimes it might just be hurtful.
Yeah.
But sometimes I have let my emotions take over me so much that I can't see that there might actually be some truth that I need to listen to.
Yeah.
And then if I need to go confront that person, or if I need to go say, you know, here's what happened and here's how that made me feel, I have to let the Lord deal with me before I go try to deal with somebody else.
Yes.
So that's the piece of humility in conflict that is hard to learn because it feels so counter to all the ways that you want to respond or react. But get your heart in a way different place once you're finally ready to go have the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah, just because 95% of what someone says isn't true doesn't mean 5% of it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson. I had a boss one time, and they just would wallop you every 6 months. And I remember sitting in the basement of a woman who I would just pour my heart out to, and I was sobbing after one of these meetings, and she said, "Well, was he right?" I'm sorry. Of course not. And the simple tool that she gave me was to take to the Lord what he had said and say, is there any truth in any of this? And wait. And if the Holy Spirit said, yeah, this is an area you need to work on it.
Yeah.
And then let the Holy Spirit deal with the rest of the stuff that isn't true. Just trust him. He wants good for you. He wants you to be refined. He wants you to be sanctified. He'll do that. And he'll also do it for that other person because he wants the same thing for them.
Right.
And that's a hard want
Yeah.
when you're so hurt.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that should be what we want for that person.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about boundaries a little bit this last episode that we talked through, but I do think that there are certain situations, and I don't know if either of you have been in those, but there are certain situations where you have walked through Matthew 18 and you have taken every step that you can to try and reconcile or figure out what the issue is or talk through it or work through it or whatever, and nothing works. Then what do you do?
Yeah. I mean,
You walk away.
yeah. Boundaries are important, and it depends on your level of relationship. So there are things like if you are in an abusive relationship,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
like, let's be clear, you walk away from that. You draw that
run
line.
away
Like,
from that. You
Hard line.
like, you know, we say believe the best about someone until they give you reason not to. Some people give you reason not to,
Right.
and you exercise wisdom in that.
Yeah.
And then there are some relationships where maybe it's not to that level, but you realize this is a relationship that I don't think can continue because the level of conflict is so great and is just not going to, it's not productive enough that it's worth staying in the relationship. And that doesn't devalue the other person, but it is sometimes you have to draw a line and a relationship has to end for that reason. And then there are other circumstances where you're going to have conflict with someone that you either don't want to lose the relationship with or you can't lose the relationship with because they're in your family or whatever. And you have to learn how to draw some hard lines with things where you either say, here's an area we don't get into. Here's something that we're not going to talk about because we just know it's not something that we can't go there. Or, I mean, there's other kinds of boundaries, but boundaries are appropriate. I don't think we should put them up prematurely.
Agreed.
There's a lot of things that need to come before that point usually. But when it's time, it's healthy.
Yeah. And it is okay for relationships to end. It's okay for friendships to end. To everything there is a season. And it's hard and it's okay to mourn that. But just like any bad boyfriend, let it go. Just don't wish for something that was not healthy and not that had run its course. Don't go back to that. And I mean, you never know. 15 years down the line, you run into him. You're both changed people. Look what the Lord has done. or you just thank the Lord for what it was and you move on.
Right.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's hard, but it's okay.
Yeah, and some boundaries are permanent and some aren't. Like I just gave the example, like sometimes Tristan and I will put up a boundary and say, we're not going to get into this right now.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's going to come down at some point because we're
Right.
going to get into it at some point.
Yeah.
And then some are more permanent than that. But again, like anything we talk about here, it's always an exercise in wisdom.
Yes.
I think boundaries can sometimes be used in a way that it's kind of a cop-out.
Yep.
Somebody's like, oh, I'm putting up a
Yep.
boundary.
Yeah.
And you're like, you didn't even try.
Right.
Like, there's so much we can do to try to get to a point of resolution
Yes.
before a boundary's put up.
It's the last.
And then the opposite of that is also true, that sometimes people just get walked all over.
They do.
And you're
Yeah.
like, man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you do not need to be treated this
Right.
way, or you've got to put up a boundary for your sake.
Yeah.
So
Forgiveness and humility are so at play in conflict. And you have to be able, like you guys have said, come humbly and then just actually really do forgive the person.
Yeah.
Don't hold it against them.
Yep.
Don't continue to hit them with it. Just forgive them because Christ forgave you.
yeah.
Yes.
He forgave
Yeah.
me for far more
Oh,
than
yeah.
hurting
Right.
his feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I don't have a leg to stand on, and I don't have a choice. I think as Christians we forget that when we sign up to follow Jesus, I mean, we have free will, but we really don't have a choice when it comes to obeying what God tells us to do as followers of Jesus. Forgive people, be generous, be loving. I mean, these are basic tenets.
Yeah, we don't pick and choose which parts of the gospel we follow.
Right.
If we
No.
follow Jesus, we're all in.
Yeah.
And that is such good perspective to remember. Jesus has had to forgive me of more than I will ever be asked to forgive
Absolutely.
anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yep.
Yeah.
He took the weight of
Yeah.
the sin of the world, including mine. I deserved hell, and he
Yeah.
took death for me.
Yeah.
I've never been asked to do that for anybody else.
Right.
No.
And I can't.
No.
I don't have the ability, as I am not sinless.
No.
Me neither, girl.
But
Me neither.
I'm not saying I won't get to heaven though and won't have some words for some people.
I don't know. I think once you get to heaven, you'll be so overwhelmed by the goodness and glory of God that it just won't matter anymore.
I hope so, but I could also see me rooting out Adam and Eve going, seriously? You couldn't tell
was
her?
dumb.
You couldn't communicate clearly to her the rules? And Eve, you didn't ask any clarifying questions?
I've got some questions for God about mosquitoes. Just like, what was the point there, Lord?
Food for birds.
Really?
Really?
I don't know, but I mean, I would think.
But
I was trying to
birds
think of,
eat other stuff. Did we need mosquitoes?
They eat worms.
I
They don't eat mosquitoes.
Or spiders eat mosquitoes, and I hate spiders. But I was trying to think of what's the purpose of I call them waspers, but they're wasps. That's what we call them in Eastern Kentucky. They're waspers. What's the point of a wasp? I don't know.
I don't either.
But I just assumed food for birds, and I love a bird.
My dad used to joke
love
around and say that, you know, as God was creating the world, it was like, you know, God would create 100 things and then he would like let Satan create one, and that's how we got mosquitoes. And that's not true. So anyone listening to this, that's not real theology, but it is a joke. So we're like, why?
Seriously,
I don't know.
why?
Yeah.
What is the point? I do not know.
Do you think that maybe? Oh, this is so going. Not. It doesn't matter. That maybe there was something before the fall. They had a purpose before the fall.
Maybe.
That is totally different than
That
what their
could
purpose
be.
is now.
That could be.
That because of sin, everything pivoted. You know, all of nature groans because it's not the way it's
Right.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because what was childbirth like before the fall? I'm not sure, but let's not forget that pain in childbirth is
yeah.
quite literally a curse.
Yeah.
So
Welcome
it didn't
to
it didn't always
girlfriend.
used to be this way, but
know.
that's what I'm headed for.
You know, it's all right.
You can get meds for that.
Yeah, I know.
I hear.
I do hear.
Don't be ashamed.
One of our elders is actually an anesthesiologist, which I didn't know. And he talked to me a few weeks ago in the green room. He's like, hey, if you ever want to learn more about this, I was like, thank you so much.
You were
Yes.
gonna say he said, "Hey, if you want me to pop in there."
I mean,
Feels like
honestly,
that crossed a boundary.
that would be really
Hey,
funny.
you want me on your birthing team? I'm free.
You let me know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That
funny.
doesn't embarrass me. Like,
I'm
like
once you're in the labor and delivery room, nothing will embarrass
Yeah.
you. Trust me.
I don't have
Nothing?
I don't have a lot of shame in that
No.
regard.
You're not.
I have so many
just,
questions.
Okay, we'll talk about them afterwards.
it might not be in the moment, but I'm thinking after you find out A, B, or C, is there?
We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Like, you really not going to be ashamed of that?
Okay, so if you haven't already, I think our challenge this week is to read Matthew 18.
It's good.
And maybe read it a few times just to make sure that it is embedded in your heart. We have a policy that's all of Matthew 18 basically when it comes to conflict resolution, and we get reminded of often around here, and I think it's so helpful because it just keeps it hidden right here. So that would be wise, a good challenge for this week. And maybe we'll have more hot takes next time. I don't know. We'll
maybe
see.
So I want to just extend my love to all the people that I offended with these hot takes and say, again,
so much for not caring.
We can agree to disagree on things, and I still love you.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, people who wildly disagree with my hot takes, I don't think any less of you. So it's okay that we disagree.
Sarah. Oh, my goodness. We don't. Not at all. All right. Well, as always, girls, this was fun. Good conversation. Good laughter. This is one of the things I most look forward to every week. I'm not going to lie. So you guys are fun.
Let's keep going. Forget taking the time off. Who cares if she's in labor? We could do one in the labor room.
Absolutely not. That is a boundary that I am drawing and saying I will not allow that.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't have anything good to say because I'd be like, oh my gosh, baby. I'd be so excited.
I'll bring him in when he's here.
Also, during this time, peeled off all of my nail polish.
Yeah, I noticed you over there doing that.
Oh, no.
It's time for a renew.
Someone's a child.
Nah, it's fine. It's just a habit. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. We are so glad that you tune in and listen to Tell Me More, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.